I grew up the biggest wrestling fan, like most kids that find themselves in this business. I was just the biggest mark imaginable. Went to my first show, my first live show, I want to say when I was 7, 8-ish. My dad took me to the Richmond Coliseum, which was crazy because life goes in full circles. I would eventually wrestle Jericho for the unified titles in 2002 in that same arena. And it's just crazy how life has a way of working itself out. But yeah, grew up a fan, grew up loving, just absolutely loving everything about the business. I would watch all day Saturday, and then at night wrestling would come on, and it was great because it would come on around 11:30, and that was when NWA came. I mean, around 11, I think, or 11:30 is when Saturday Night Main Event would come on, and then NWA would go till 2 o'clock. I would watch. I was 7 years old, staying up. I would make a little bed on the floor, and I would literally stay up till 2 o'clock and watch wrestling every week. So I was a huge fan. But the thing about getting into wrestling, it's like asking someone, how do you become an astronaut? What's the who the hell knows? So when Tough Enough, when they came out with Tough Enough season 1, I still remember my best friend at the time was a guy who works for the Islanders now, and we were living in Oregon, and we were both school teachers. And Jim Ross's voice came out, it said, "Hey, you ever wanted to be a wrestler?" And I was like, "Yes." And he looked at me, he was like, "This is so up your alley." And regular guy teaching. I was a 6th grade school teacher, high school baseball coach, and I sent in a video. Absolutely no. In a million years, I didn't think they were going to call me back. In a million. I just thought I did a video just to say I did it. Check it off my bucket list.
Hold you back.
It's funny because I was in my classroom, my 6th grade class, and the phone rings. And that phone, the classroom phone was only like for emergencies, only. And for it to ring, I didn't give people out that number. It's not like, people knew to contact me there. But I did put it on my application. So I remember it. It was, I think the name was Christy. I think she said, "Hi, is this Maven?" I was like, "Yes." And she's like, "This is Christy from MTV and WWF." And I was like, "Yeah, tell Kirk that's funny." And I hung up.
Wow.
and literally didn't get a call back. And I go home. And I was like, "Yeah, good." Because I think they were playing jokes on each other. I was like, "Yeah, nice joke." And he was like, "It wasn't me." And then I'm just like, then I'm just, making deals with God, I promise all the things I do if they called back. They did. They called back the very next day and, told me what the next steps were to how to get to New York for, to audition for Tough Enough. And I had actually, my first trip ever to New York was for Tough Enough. That was the first time I ever laid feet in this city. And it's just crazy that now I turn my head to the left. I'm looking at the World Trade Center,
So what did the audition consist of? How long was it? How long were you in New York?
It was, I was in New York for 3 days. It was a 2-part audition. I literally thought, and that mean it started, I want to say it started around 8 a.m. So me thinking, I'm going to get there early. I'm going to be one of the first ones. I'm going to show them, just how committed I was. So I got there around 6:15, and there was already a line around WWF New York. And I still remember it. My number was, because they, took you in and, gave you a number. I was number 59. And Mike, I wanted to leave. Like, I'm looking around, and there's just guys, there's just guys that look like John Cena and Batista and, just monsters everywhere. And that wasn't me. I mean, at the time I was 6'2", probably weighed, 205. And, that's, there was literally guys in there that were, 300 just chiseled. And I'm like, they're not going to pick me. But I was like, I'm here. I'm going to stick to it. Yeah. The first audition, and I don't know if you remember it, if you watched, but they would get you in the ring, and then you would do a couple 30 seconds of calisthenics, because they just wanted to get your heart rate up, and then they wanted you to cut a promo, and I had the perfect promo. I worked on it for days in my mind. I had it memorized word for word. So I did my calisthenics, and I looked over, and there's Jacqueline, and I winked at her. And the moment that I started doing my promo, Taz cuts me off, and he's like, "You winked at Jacqueline." And at first, I was like, now I'm not gonna get my promo. But that wink, I think, gave them an idea of just a little taste of my personality, which probably propelled me through that first day. The second day was just more in-depth interviews. What what you were hoping to get out of the whole thing, and I've said this before, and they asked me, the MTV people, because they're getting ready to do a reality show, and this isn't today's reality shows we're talking about. This is back in the 2001. So we're probably, in the infancy of reality television. It's not like it is today. You can't make a living back then off of just doing reality TV. But they asked me, they said, "Do you want to wrestle, or do you want to be on TV?" Because if you want to be on TV, they said, one of the next spots in Road Rules or the Real World is yours. And I was like, "Nah, I want to wrestle." Probably the dumbest thing I ever did, but I could have came out with a Kim Kardashian tape.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe I bet there's one or two of them out there, Maven. I'm not.
I'm not gonna say there's not. I'm not gonna say there's not.
We're all about views on this channel, so if you wanna text me any of those videos, I'm posting them.
I'll put a link to it on the bottom of it.
Awesome.
Day two was, like I said, just in-depth interviews, just finding out your personality. I think they wanted to make sure that the people that they had in the house was going to not be crazy, but be crazy enough to provide enough drama.
Sure.
And there's a fine line there. You don't want wallflowers. You don't want the people that are literally just going to just sit and do nothing. You want people that are A-type personalities, people that are going to just elevate, and just up those Nielsen ratings. And how do you do that? By conflict. So once they figured that out, they announced, I want to say at the end of day two, they announced who was going to be there. And I remember the moment they announced my name, I immediately was like, how do I quit my job? Because I left. I took like a vacation day or two, and I didn't think I was going to have to go back and quit my job. But the show was filming a week later, so I had to go back, and fortunately, the school I was in, man, they could not. I put them in a bad situation. It's, oh my gosh, I want to say late February 2001 when we started, or March-ish. And they have to find a new school teacher for the last couple months of school. That's not an enviable situation. But they had nothing but they were like, "You got to do it. If this is literally what you've dreamed up your whole life, you got to do it." So
that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. What are they offering you by giving you a spot on this show? You're literally giving up. So are they paying you to be on the show?
$300 a week.
How many weeks is it?
9 weeks.
Your commitment is $2,700, 2 months out of your life. That's all they're offering you.
Yeah, and I didn't even look at it as the $300 a week could have been 30,000, or it could have been $3 a week. That was irrelevant. I was going there. When you asked me what they were offering, it was opportunity. Like I said, these kids now, they do reality shows, and I want to say, like some of the kids that do Jersey Shore, like they're making like $250,000 an episode. Like that's insane. Like that's just bonkers to me. God bless them. I wish we were doing that. but it was just opportunity. They were giving us a chance. And I knew that's all it was signed up for. I also knew that once it was over, there was a good chance that I was going to have to be looking for a new job. And I didn't know if I was going to, necessarily go back into teaching. I didn't know if I was going to still live in Oregon. My mom was sick at the time. I had just found out like 2 months earlier that she was, diagnosed with terminal cancer. So, I mean, there's a lot going on in my life at this time. But even then, I knew that this opportunity is not going to come around twice. And sure enough, they did like 2 or 3 or 4 more Tough Enough. So yeah, it could have came around twice. But
what was an average week on Tough Enough like for you?
Man, it was the best way to describe it. It was very boot campish. Like they wanted to make it tough because everything about getting into the wrestling business, it was just, with the volume turned up. They were putting, they were putting a situation that would probably take years and trying to cram it into a few months. So, everything about the training was physically demanding, it was mentally demanding. We would get up in the morning and we would be down at the training facility at Tracks at like 9 a.m. Which, okay, that doesn't sound like much. But then we'd be, training the entire day. And then our training facility was like a mile away from WWF's main office at the time in Stanford. So then we would drive at 4 o'clock over to there. And then they had some ridiculous workout for us to do. Now, I say ridiculous, but it got me in the best shape of my life up until that point. Like I left there 9 weeks later, my whole body had changed. And we would get home, around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, just exhausted. And that was Monday through Thursday. And then Friday, we would train a half day. And then they would keep Fridays open for like just for the MTV, portion of it. They could do interviews and, they would drive us all down there at different times to do one-on-ones, which was good because it gave us a little bit of a rest. And then weekends, they always had something planned for us. It's weird going into something and I'm sure you've heard the expression, don't meet your heroes because they'll never live up to what you hope. Al's the flip side of that coin. Al's as great, like what you see, he's better than you can imagine. And you know what? I know, people that have been trained by Taz as well. And I mean, I know, like, I talked to, Danny Doring's one of my, Danny's one of my good friends. And I know Taz trained him and, pretty much, put him through the ringers. Like Taz was our our alternative to Al when he would come in because he was still working a full-time schedule and he would come in and just turn the intensity up. But Al was, I don't know if there's anybody at the time, that has more of a knowledge base to learn the business from than Al. And then Jackie and Tori just rounded out the process. And I watched, other seasons of the show, and all the trainers that I saw looked and fit the part. But I'm happy with the ones I have because I still to this day have the relationship with Al that if I texted him, I need you, it would take 30 seconds for him to text me back.
Great. That's awesome.
What was the hardest part for you as far as picking up the wrestling?
The wrestling or just the hardest part for me was I've never been into I've always hated long distance running. So I made myself run. Like even on our days off, I would have one of the camera guys who had a motorcycle drive me like 5 miles from the house and drop me off, and then I would run back. I keep in mind, I I was coming off of I had been a college baseball player, so I was in good shape for that. And then I was in my post athletic career. I was a school teacher. I was as out of shape as you can get for 2 years. So just I think the hardest thing for me was just getting my body back in athletic shape. And I mean it was boot style type you know what they did. I mean, we would get there and the first thing they would have us do was like run a mile and a half and then do calisthenics and then start training. The cardio aspect of it took, I would say, a good 45 minutes before we even got into the ring. But like I say, so coming off of just, I mean, I think the most athletic thing at the time I was doing was playing slow pitch softball. So that was, it just took a while to get used to that. The wrestling aspect of it, just so the hardest thing for that was just learning how to just live with pain. And I've said it in interviews before, and no truer words have ever been spoken to me. The Hardy said, if you choose this as your line of, as your profession, the way you feel today will be the best your body will ever feel. Yeah. They were 100% right. You heard me get up 10 minutes ago. I mean, my back's killing me right now. And but then again, I wouldn't change a thing. I knew what I was signing up for. What we do is not ballet. It's just cost. It's a cost that comes with what we do.
When you win Tough Enough, like, what is your life like after that? You go to what, HWA?
Yeah. Well, remember my mom was sick, so they gave me. I want to say they gave me a good month before they sent me to HWA, and all I was doing was
that Les Thatcher.
Yeah, it was Les Thatcher. Yeah.
Got it.
And they would, but since Tough Enough was hot at the time, I think for 3 straight weeks following Tough Enough, I flew to SmackDown and wrestled Taz for the 3 straight weeks. And they also, but then I would fly home to be with my mom because I was transitioning, living in Oregon to being, stationed in Virginia at the time to be with her whenever I could. And at this time, she was, she couldn't live by herself. She was needed, 24-hour, care with. She lived with her mother. But after about a month, they people can say what they want about the WWE, WWF. I'll never stop them. All I can go off of is my experience with them, and they could not have been more accommodating, understanding, and helpful with what I was going through with my mom, and I'm forever grateful for that. But yeah, then about a month after that, and wrestling Taz, they moved. They sent me to HWA, which was Les Thatcher. I got down there, and there was a time in our developmental when, obviously everybody's biased, but I'll put our developmental classes between us and OVW, which was 2 hours away, and we would do we would do shows every Sunday at OVW for TV. But we had at one time, and then I'm putting myself in this just because I want to. But we had Randy Orton, Batista, John Cena, 3-Minute Warning, Rosie and Umaga, Jamie Noble, Easy Money, Jimmy Yang. Oh my gosh, Shelton Benjamin. My goodness, Charlie Haas. We had, Lance Cade, Mark Jindrak, Reno. And I'm leaving people off. We had a roster that would, Brock's like the 10th guy I named. We literally had a roster that would, come to change the face of professional wrestling. And I'm happy to have just been, a small tiny part of that. And I knew when I got down there, every one of those guys probably hated me. I knew it. You don't get into this business without having heat. You just don't. And then the way I got into the business, that just that puts the heat on overdrive. But you know what? Oh shit, Mike Sanders. Like I'm gonna be coming up with guys that were there, forever. But they never let it on. Like I never heard about it. I never knew about it. They could not have been nice to me. Shoot, Johnny the Bull. I mean, we had a who's who of guys, from because Vince had just bought WCW at the time as well. So it was just literally a who's who of guys from the business down there.